Living the dream in someone else's nightmare. Bam, we're live. Are you in California?
Awesome. Yeah, I am. Southern California.
Oh, what city?
In the city of Fontana.
Montana. Where? I mean, I know the name. Where is?
It's
Can you help?
it's like near Rancho Cucamonga, Ontario. It's like a little bit north, up to 15, a little bit more.
Okay. All right. Oh, look at you. Look at you. You're either huge or that's a tiny cup.
I'm really big.
I'm either small or this is a giant cup.
So how you doing, man?
Dude, I was so happy to find your Instagram account.
Yeah.
It's got
Yeah, man.
it's got like almost I mean, what is the Instagram account? I'm gonna change your name for the Instagram account so anyone can check it out.
It's just my name at Jeremy Kinnick.
Okay.
No dots or anything like that.
Okay. There we go. Like that.
Yep, just like that.
So, were you in the 2007 CrossFit Games?
No, I started CrossFit just before the games, but we didn't go up.
Okay, were you in the 2008 Games?
Yeah, I was in the 8. Yep.
Yeah, all right. And that's how that's how we first came on each other's radar.
Yeah, 2008, 2009, and then yeah, and like just yeah.
Over there, and then I know that I've been to your gym at least a couple times with Greg. When Greg spoke there was some event there. I know I've been there a couple times. And then your brother started Beyond the Whiteboard.
Yeah. So my brother was the owner of the gym. I managed it for him. Because he was doing other stuff. But yeah, they found it Beyond the Whiteboard, and I managed the gym. But he actually sold it, so we're not doing that anymore.
Oh, what are you? Do you have a day job?
Well, I actually, my wife got hired as a firefighter, and so
oh shit! Congratulations, that's awesome.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, and so when that happened, I started like I left the gym because she was staying at home and I was working, and then we just kind of flip flop because we wanted one of us home with the kids because we were homeschooling them. So I do that now. I stay home with the boys, homeschool them, do all their practices, all the stuff.
And are you consulting?
Yeah, I'll do a little bit on the side. Excuse me. I was doing like nutrition coaching for a while. I stopped that. Now I'm doing some like supplements and stuff like that.
How about homeschooling consulting? Are you doing any of that? Do parents?
Yeah, so my Instagram revolves around that. It's to help, like if people want to.
It's so good. Well, I cannot tell you how good it is.
If people want to do public school, I don't have any problem with that. That's their thing, right? That's I'm not going to tell people what to do. But if people want to do homeschool, if they are like they heard all the lies, all the myths, all this crap about it, I want to help them like realize what it actually is, right? So I'm not trying to convert people to do homeschool. I'm just trying to help people that are interested or that are kind of leaning like, hey, maybe this public school thing is a little bit crazy. I want to help those people, right?
There are if you have kids or if you're thinking about having kids or if you just want to get a different perspective on what's going on with society, you should really check out this Instagram account. Jeremy is much more even keeled than myself. There's things in the, it's a very safe Instagram account to go to. He's very thoughtful. There's a lot of resources there, and basically he's laying out some stuff. One of the things he just points out some things that I realized, not necessarily about homeschool, but about life slowly. So one of the things is we had our babies at home. And we really wanted to have the babies in the hospital. We felt like it was the safest. It was the best way to go. We wanted to have, trained medical professionals there. It's the birth. Then we ended up doing a birthing class, and the birthing teacher pulled us aside and said, "Hey, after listening to you and your wife talk, you guys want to do a home birth?" I'm like, "No, we don't." She goes, "Yeah, you're saying some things that you're gonna." I think she's like, "I'm not telling you what you have to do. I don't care what you do. But I'm listening to you speak, and you definitely want a home birth." So we looked into it, and you say the same thing about homeschooling that I realized after we had the babies at home. homeschooling is not the experiment. Public school is the experiment.
Yeah.
And after you have a baby at home, you realize that the brave people aren't the ones that have the baby at home. The brave ones are the ones that have it at the hospital. Because when you have a baby at home, the baby's just born and it sits in bed with mom and you're done. There's no one pricking it. There's no blood test. There's no one fucking with your baby. You don't got to get into a car. You don't got to introduce your baby to plastic or off gas. You don't do nothing.
Yeah.
The mama just sits, you know what I mean? It's just and you're like, oh my goodness, I cannot imagine a doctor touching my baby right now. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's like, just natural. It's
just,
like,
and there's no experiment. It's not trippy. I mean, it's just the woman just plops it out on your living room floor, and then you just she does whatever she wants.
Yeah,
starts feeding the baby off the boobies. Yeah, nuts. And it is illegal to have twins at home in the state of California.
Oh, I didn't realize that. Twins, huh?
Yeah. My what is it? My body, my rights, but not if you're a woman and you want to give birth to
only
your
if
baby.
You do what we say.
Yeah, and another thing is if you go over 2 weeks, you're not allowed to past your gestation.
Oh, really?
You're not allowed to give birth at home too.
No, there's a lot of rules.
A lot of rules around that baby stuff. A lot of rules.
Yeah, that's weird.
I grew up thinking as a kid that homeschooling was for all the weirdos. Like you had to be like Mormon or Scientologist or Jehovah Witness or a CrossFitter. You had to have belong to some sort of fucking cult. You had to be Amish. You had to be I don't know, some fancy Christian thing where religion.
It'd be like a shut-in, right? Like you were afraid of the world, so you like hide in your house. Like that was my idea of homeschool. I had.
So you started there too. That's what you thought as a
kid
too.
For
Those
sure.
Well, fucking whacked out parents and whacked out kids.
Well, I was like, those kids are weird. I knew some homeschool kids. My cousins were homeschooled, and I love my cousins. They're awesome, but they're very like to themselves. Like they're not going out. It was like you can't play the video game because there's magic in there. That's evil, like stuff like that, where it's like kind of extreme. And so that's my idea was like, oh, that's weird. Like, but as I got older, we met some families and we met some really cool kids, and they're like, oh yeah, they're homeschooled. And I was like, what? And so some people from our church, they were telling us like, oh yeah, we've always homeschooled. And I really respected these two people, and their kids were awesome. They weren't like weird. They were just normal kids. And so that kind of piqued my interest. And I always had, dude, I hated school. Like I've always liked learning, but I hated school.
You didn't like going there and with the friends and like getting in trouble and like riding your bike there and that.
There were parts of it. Yeah, there were parts of it that I liked. Like you have a lot of memories from that. But like sitting, like spending that many hours sitting there and being subjected to like, there's some awesome teachers. I had some great teachers, but I had some terrible teachers. I had a teacher in one grade. I just didn't even go to school. I just told my mom I was sick every day. So I was sick, and I'm like, Mom, you didn't realize that there was a problem? She's like, no, I just thought you were sick. I was like, all right, but
what grade was that?
I think that was like, we'll say it's like fourth grade. I think, yeah, fourth grade.
I started doing stuff early where I would tell my mom I was going to walk to school around that age. Okay. Then I'd go in the backyard, and then my mom would leave to go to work, and then I just come back in the house.
Just chill out, yeah.
Yeah, just as a little kid.
Yeah, that's awesome. How old was that? Around that age?
Yeah, 3rd, 4th, 5th grade. Yeah, my parents were workaholics.
Okay,
they had to make money so they could buy peanut butter and jelly and feed me.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And what was the problem? Did the teacher hit or something? What was the problem?
No, she didn't hit. She was just a jerk. Yeah, like she just would yell at kids or demean them or make a point, like embarrass you in front of class, and it's like. Yep. And I remember being in like, I forget what grade it was, 2nd or 3rd grade. And I had to go to the bathroom and the teacher wouldn't let me go. And I peed my pants.
Yeah.
Like, that's so stupid. Dude, that's so stupid.
Yeah.
Like all that kind of stuff. And like, I don't think that it's so unnecessary. Right. And like I said, I don't have a problem. Like when I talk about homeschool with people, like, we had a CrossFit gym forever and there were tons of teachers and they all knew that I homeschooled. But I made it very clear to them, like, I don't have a problem with teachers, right? Mm-hmm. You're having to you're teaching 30 kids, right? Like that's hard. right? That's a hard thing to do. Like I have 2 boys and they drive me nuts sometimes, right? Like, you know how it is. Like it's hard. I don't have a problem with them. But what I have a problem with is the way the system's set up. It's not set up for us guys, for boys to thrive. Like it's set up for us to like become a robot, you know, like do what we say, like listen, follow these rules, go get a 9-to-5 job. You need to go get that 9-to-5 job because then you have security, and then you need to get the insurance, and then you need to get, you know, it's all this stuff that you need to have that security, right? And so we're conditioned to say, okay, well, that's what I do. And so most people, they finish school, they go to college, they get too much debt, they can never pay it off, they get a terrible job, they hate their job.
You have to find someone to get pregnant. You have to buy a house.
Yeah. Well, and then maybe at 40, you're like, this sucks. Maybe I should do something different. Well, it's too late, right? It's too late.
Right.
So that
your habits are ingrained.
Yeah, exactly. So that's my issue. You know, one of them.
Did anything happen that so for me, when the so-called pandemic hit and they started demanding that kids wear masks, I knew then that my kids would never go to school. I knew that my kids would never, ever, 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 ever be asked by me to cover their nose and their mouth. And I asked Nikki Rodriguez, the you know, phenom jiu-jitsu guy out of the B team out of Austin. I said, hey, do you ever wear a mask? And he goes, I cover people's noses and mouths to kill them.
Right.
I'm like, check. Got it. Yeah. Got it. And I just knew at that point I would never do that. And you're a little more, I think, and I do judge, I don't know if it's unfortunate. I do judge people who do cover their kids' mouth and nose. Yeah. And I do judge actually, and I made this mistake and my wife judged me and unfucked me. I judge actually parents who wear masks in front of their kids too. My wife is one of the nicest people ever, no pushback, but she refuses to wear a mask in front of the kids because she doesn't want to send them the message that there's anything wrong when there's not. Yeah. Gotcha. And so, that's what did it for me. We're like, oh shit, our kids can't go to school. And that's when the homeschool door opened. Oh, okay. Was there anything that happened for you? Like, you're like, oh, they're teaching my kids this, or my kids, I don't.
No,
there wasn't one specific thing.
No, because they've never gone to public school, our boys.
Okay.
So
mine didn't either, by the way. They were,
but you were just young enough, right? They were young enough,
it was just young enough. It was just coincidental, circumstantial. Yeah.
There was no like one thing that happened that was like, oh, no one's ever doing that to my kids. But I just didn't want them. I couldn't imagine my boys. They're so rambunctious. They're so, you know, I feel like your kids are the same way. Like they're just full of energy, full of life.
Yeah.
And then you're telling them to go sit down for 6 hours or however long it is, right? I just couldn't imagine that. And so we just never even, my wife was like, well, let's do it. You know, we'd kind of talked about it for a while before we had kids. And then as we had kids, and then when they were really young, and then like I said, we had some friends. And so we had that support, and like homeschooling now is completely different than like when we were growing up. The resources, it's like a lot more acceptable. There's more people doing it. So there's like groups, like we're involved, like we belong to a co-op group through a local church. And so we go and meet once a week, and they do like enrichment classes. They do science, they'll do art, they'll do some Bible, they'll do some PE, and they'll just do things like that. But they're hanging out with friends, but it's like just for a couple hours, like once a week, you know, it's like, that's cool. Yeah. Like I don't have a problem with my kids sitting down, listening to somebody. It's the repetitive, like for no reason, right? Like, like you don't need to do that. You can still learn without sitting down for 6 hours a day. Like,
and this whole thing of appealing to the lowest common denominator. I don't have talented kids, but I do have really hardworking kids.
Yeah. And they look pretty talented to me.
Well, it's just through hard work.
Through hard work, right?
Yeah. And I don't want them. I don't want them subjected to the lowest common denominator. Yeah. If that's what's happening, especially, I mean, I know you know what's happening in California. They're doing the thing where they say it's not fair to make kids turn in homework. They're now in some places they're now grading kids based on the color of their skin. So they basically hold a piece of paper up next to you, and one side it's white, one side it's black, and it's just
I didn't hear about that.
Dude, nuts.
What?
Nuts. Hey, and you know what's worse than doing that is my kids finding out that that's happening. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't want my kids to know yet that's happening.
Yeah, that's not okay. Like that idea shouldn't even be put in their head. Like that's a thing. Like that's horrible. That really is.
There's this line, and I have a bunch of slides from your Instagram that I want to share with people, some just fun ones. Homeschool is not public school at home. When I read that last night, I was like, I felt this huge sigh of relief.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, my kids are 5 and 7 and everything's great, but even that kind of let me off the hook. Like, it's not, I'm not trying to do public school. Can you tell me about that? How you came to that and what that means?
Well, I mean, basically it's just like, it's something that I thought was necessary to say because people were asking me, man, or telling me like, it's so hard. Like my kids are spending all day on Zooms, right? This is something that I realized like as the pandemic was going on, right? Because everyone the schools sent the kids home and they just put them on Zoom all day. So they're sitting in front of a computer like this.
I heard that, by the way,
right?
Because my kids do a lot of activities with school kids, tons.
Yeah.
And I'm hearing the parents say that, and I'm just like, my kids don't even know what Zoom is. My kids have never even sat in front of a computer.
Right? It's crazy. So
they're 5.
Dude, why would they? Right? I have my next door neighbor is a kindergarten teacher, and I'm talking to her, and I was at that time I was training people out of my garage, just doing some CrossFit stuff, doing some, and anyway, and so she's at home and she's like, man, I have to do Zooms with kindergartners. I just start laughing at her. I'm like, what does that even look like? And she's like, it's a lot of games. I'm like, so you're just babysitting them? She's like, yeah. What? So anyways, so I realized that like people were getting a bad taste and they weren't getting a good experience of what homeschool was like. They were just doing public school at home.
Right.
They were taking exactly what they do at school and coming home and mimicking that. And homeschool is not that. Homeschool is very we don't spend a lot of time at all on schoolwork. We learn through doing things, right? And we'll do some work here, we'll do some work there, but then we'll go to the field and we'll hit. My boys like baseball. Or we'll go to the park and they'll ride their scooters at the skate park. Or we'll go to the grocery store and get groceries. Or we'll clean the house, or we'll play on the trampoline, right? Like our day is made up more of those kind of activities, right? And so before COVID, they were going to a STEM class. So like once a week they would go, and when they would learn about, engineering, they would learn about some coding, they would build. And
tell me what STEM is.
So STEM is
it's an acronym, right?
It's an acronym. It's science, technology, engineering, and math. Yeah, there we go.
Okay.
Right. So it's kind of like that kind of stuff. It's super cool. And there's a place near us, actually in Rancho and Claremont, but it's called STEM Center USA. And there's 2 sisters that started it. They're amazing. I believe they were on, don't quote me on this, I believe they were on Shark Tank. They were on something. Anyways, it's super cool. But they go to school, they go once a week to that, and they build, and they have these teachers. But once they had to start wearing masks, I just told them, I said, hey, we love you guys. It's awesome, but my boys can't do it. Like, they're just not going to do that. So we just stopped. And unfortunately, they loved it. And my older son did robotics, tournaments where he'd build little robots and they battle, and he had to stop. So, because I wasn't going to have him do that. So, but that's what our day looks like, right? So our homeschool, it doesn't look like anything like what we're doing at public school. And so that was where that quote or that idea came from. It's like, you guys, because people kept asking me about, hey, I guess this is easy for you guys, right? You guys are already at home. But no, for us, it cut off a lot of stuff, right? We actually had to be at home more because we couldn't do the activities that we were normally doing. There was a lot more pushback with that,
With what? You kind of lost me there.
Well, there was like with the STEM class, right? We couldn't.
Oh.
I didn't want to go because of the masks.
Right.
And certain things got shut down.
Right.
You know, and
The
they've
yellow
done
tape
tutoring
around
here.
the yellow tape around the parks.
Exactly. I'm like, come on, you know. So,
Jackasses.
and actually for us, like there were more people doing like at parks and, you know, the ones that weren't shut down. And so it was harder for us to go do the normal things that we were doing. So a lot of people were like, oh, I guess you guys weren't impacted at all. And it's like, we absolutely were. Because we're not, you know, like sitting at home all day is not what we do for homeschool.
Right.
You know?
I'm sure with your kids too, and I see it on Instagram. Obviously, my kids do a lot of moving and they do a lot of counting. So from a young age, it was like, okay, you're going to push that, you know, 50-pound D-ball back and forth across the garage 10 times, right? And then one day, I don't know how young they are, but it's the same with all three of them. They go, I have 3 left. And then I know that they're doing math, right? Because I told them they had to do 10 and they've done 7 and now they're doing math. And I'm like, oh, really cool. Shit. The 2 or 3-year-old knows addition and subtraction. I didn't have to teach them shit. They're like,
they didn't have to sit down and scribble and, you know.
They're calculating. They're
That's
calculating.
Really cool. Yeah.
And you see that stuff everywhere. And one of the other components pieces that I did is my kids do and I know maybe not everyone can afford this, but I know that there's avenues to get it for everyone. My kids, I always wanted them to have adult interaction. And you talk about this on your Instagram also.
Yeah.
And I didn't care what the sports were, but I wanted them to have professional teachers. So I was, I knew nothing about tennis. I thought tennis was stupid, but I found an amazing tennis coach. And now they've been doing tennis 3 years. And I just want them to be able to interact with adults who really care about their craft. And then I found a jiu-jitsu instructor who thought the same thing. And I found a professional skateboarder who like has like pride, and all these guys have a little bit of pride and arrogance in their crafts.
Yeah. I love that.
And my kids, from dealing with these guys all 3 days a week, these guys and gals, they have this ability to interact with adults that's so unique, I feel like.
Yeah, absolutely.
Compared to other kids. In those settings, I also see them with other kids. And there's 2 things I noticed. I'll start with the first one. I walked up to the tennis coach the other day and I go, why do you think my 3 boys have so much more focus and are different than these other kids? And I didn't even ask him if he thought that. I just projected that onto him. I made that presupposition. Yeah. And he goes, because your kids don't go to school. And I go, what do you mean by that? He goes, all these kids spend from 8 in the morning to 3 o'clock in the afternoon in dick measuring contests with other kids. Yeah. And I was like, holy shit. And we just had some friends over this weekend. And anytime their kids did something that beat my kids, like any game, like wrestling or basketball, they would run and tell their parents, I beat so-and-so. I've never heard my kids do that. They'll occasionally say something like, hey, I choked that guy out. Or did you see that ollie I did? But they're so not about beating down other kids.
It's not about how they beat them. It's like, look at this cool thing I did, right? Like I accomplished this thing. Isn't that cool, Dad? You know?
Yes. And the tennis instructor's like, hey, dude, all these kids are in pressure cookers. They're with fucking 30 to 300 kids all day, just fucking in a pressure cooker in a dick measuring contest. He's like, your 7-year-old just wants to get better at tennis. Yeah.
Well, you know what's interesting? I don't mean to cut you off.
No, go ahead. Yeah, no, that's it.
Well, what's interesting about them being with that group, right? They, like public school kids, like it's very cliquey. Like you only hang out with kids that are your grade. Right. Second graders, hang out with you don't go up like high school. You don't hang out with freshmen if you're a senior, right? There's these huge age barriers, right? Like you're stuck with these kids. Whereas like homeschool kids, like there's like you just play with whoever's there.
Yeah, and your son's deadlifting 280 at 13. Jeremy's son, what's it, Carson, sorry. Yeah, and so when you're deadlifting 280 at 13, you don't train with other 13-year-olds probably. You're training with 17-year-olds, 40-year-old men, 38-year-old women. You're training with, that's interesting you say that. And same with my kids. My 5-year-olds, the youngest person in their tennis class is like 8 because they've been playing tennis since they're 3. Not that they're great at it. They just have put in the, they just put in the work. Yeah, they just put in the work. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. That's fascinating. Yeah.
So like my 13-year-old, like when it's like, hey, let's go play, let's go hang out somewhere. Like he'll be hanging out with 7-year-olds, you know, or my 10-year-old be hanging out with 15-year-olds. They're just all just hanging out, playing, and just having a good time. They've never been told that they can only hang out with their age group, and that it's only
skate park's the same way, jiu-jitsu's the
right,
same way.
for sure. Yeah, you see that a lot. So for me, that's like a huge, like, I love that. I love seeing that, you know. And like you were saying, like I love seeing like those professional coaches, like your kids are learning from, and their role models are these guys that are like way up here, right? Like they're the best of the best. They have this good mentality, this good mindset, and they're being molded and shaped by those types of guys. Like that's what I want too. I want my boys to be challenged, and I want them to have these role models that aren't people that are pissed off going to the 9 to 5. You know, I don't want them to like that, like sucks the life out of you, I feel like. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you remind me of another thing too. So the other day, a young girl was getting her gray belt in jiu-jitsu, and they chose my son to do her test with her. And even though he's fucking way better than her, he has the social grace to let her perform all the moves on him. The instructor doesn't even have to say it. And then they're supposed to do a 3-minute spar, and they tell my son, hey, just go as hard as you can. This doesn't matter. But he still won't. Yeah. Because he knows it's her. He has the social grace.
That's really cool.
No, it's her gray belt test. Yeah. And I see that the other kids don't have that.
Mm-hmm.
Like you can put my son, you could put my son with someone who's brand new to the class in a white belt and who's 37 pounds, even though he's 50, and he'll never smash them. Never, ever, ever. Yeah. It's fascinating. Yeah. And the other kids aren't like that. Some of them are. I'm not saying all of them.
Yeah.
But a lot of the kids, it's just about fucking, I guess what they're taught in school, it's only about winning.
Yeah.
I heard this guy say the other day, Jeremy, that please and thank yous are non-negotiables. And I had a friend come over to my house, and he was visiting from out of town, and I knew he was bringing his son. So when his son came, I had ordered this really cool spinner for him. It was all made of, you know what spinners are? Those things kids play with and they spin.
Yep.
And it was this really cool steel one. It was kind of expensive, and it had all these gears, and it was super intricate. And when you spun it, all sorts of stuff was activated. And I gave it to him, and he wouldn't say thank you. And his dad still let him have it, which I disapprove of. But those are also the kind of things that can happen in school. For me, it's non-negotiable either. If you came to my house and gave my kid something and he didn't say please or thank you or make eye contact with you, he'd have to give it back to you. And then when he was ready to make eye contact and say please or thank you, then he could get it.
Yeah.
Those are the things you get away with in school too, right?
Yeah, you kind of, because they kind of fall through the cracks, you know?
Yeah, teachers aren't enforcing that shit. They can't enforce that with 30 kids in 7 classes.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there's a lot of those little things that just kind of fall through the cracks because you can't control 30 kids. It's not going to happen, right? And by the time they're like in high school, then they're all sitting perfectly, and they've learned how to do school, right? You sit there, you obey the teacher, you never question. Like my boys question authority all the time. They're just because an adult said it, just because their coach said it, just because so-and-so said it that's older than them, that doesn't matter. If it's not right,
can you give me
an
example of that, like what that looks like? If you think of one, tell me. I'm so curious.
Yeah, I mean, they just because someone tells them something to do, if like let's say for an example, a coach wants them to do this, I don't know, like they may listen to him, but then afterwards they go, hey dad, that like why are we doing that? Like
a drill, like if it was
like a drill, or like, or they're gonna do like a ton of running, like oh, you guys messed up, you're gonna do a bunch of, like, we're gonna punish you and you're gonna go run for the rest of practice, right? Like they're questioning that. They don't just go, okay, coach said so, I'm gonna go do it. Like they go and do it out of respect, but then they come to me and they say, dad, why are we doing that? Like we should be practicing to get better, you know, like, and so they're not just going to be this yes guy, right? They're going to go, hey, why are we doing that? Hey, or someone treats somebody poorly, right? A coach yells at a kid, or the dad coach yells at the son. It's like, man, that must suck, dad. Like that, like, you know, why is he doing that? And so I got to explain, well, you know, sometimes dads are, if their kids don't perform, it makes them look bad, or they feel like it makes them look bad, and so they have to, and then they're frustrated, and so they yell at their kid, and they're like, oh, that's kind of dumb, like they kind of are able to step back, like, and look at stuff instead of just going, yes, coach, and then just go and do it, or yes, sir, you're older than me, you're the authority, you're the boss, I'm going to obey.
And do you think that they develop that question because they have a little more autonomy at home in terms of their schedule, in terms of what they do?
I for sure do. And there's opportunities for me to interject through life, right? Through moments of, hey, this kid was kind of picking, like a kid. My younger son said, hey, Dad, this kid slapped me in the face yesterday. And so we're driving home, and I'm like, well, why? And so we start talking about it, and I'm like, hey, you have some options. Like, you could slap him back, right? You could ask him, hey, why'd you do that? You could say, hey, you do that again, I'll knock you out. You could knock him out. Like, I'm like going through, these are all the options. You have to decide, is this a good friend? Do you want to fight him? Right. Or do you want to let him know you can't push me around? And so I'm talking him through, like, but if,
or did you deserve it?
And so I said, and I know my son, and I'm like, what were you doing? Well, I mean, I punched him in the stomach.
Yeah, right. But that's with my boys too. He hit me. Why? Well, because I kicked him in the back. I'm like, dude.
But he goes, I punched him in the stomach, but it wasn't that hard. And I said, well, why'd you punch him? Well, he's picking on his little brother. And I was like, okay. I'm like, that's cool, but you have to decide, like, is this friend a guy that I want to fight and then not be friends with? Or is it, hey, you want to let him know you can't treat me like that? I said, you need to set the boundaries. And so the point of that is, like, I get to have those conversations throughout the day with my boys, right? I get to do that. Whereas someone that's at school, you just don't get that many opportunities, right? Somebody else, their teacher, their principal, and great if they're great people, but what if they're not, right? They're the ones who are dictating how they live their life, not the parent, not me. And I want that. I want to decide, like, how my boys view life, right? And so, you just don't get that when your kids are gone all day. And I understand, like, I'm in a unique situation, right? Like, not everyone's a stay-at-home dad, right? And maybe it's not possible for everyone, but previous years, we've made a lot of sacrifices to be homeschool parents, right? To be a homeschool family. Like, my wife stayed home. We had one income from being a gym manager, and it wasn't a lot of money. Like, we had to just make sacrifices. And so, like, I get that, but I wouldn't trade the opportunity I have with my boys. Like, for me, it's so rad to be able to, like, hang out with my boys all day and just do life with them, and teach them. Cause, like, I feel like that's my job no matter what, right? Like, even if I was working a ton of hours and I wasn't home, that's still my job. But I have much less impact on their life when I'm gone a lot.
It's funny. I'm 50 years old. I've only had one new car that I bought my whole life, my minivan, and I bought it for my kids. And I don't go on vacations unless like someone else pays for it. I don't do every single cent of money that I have, I make sure allows me to live the lifestyle of spending time with my kids. That's it. Yeah. I don't buy camera gear. I don't buy new clothes. I don't, everything is to push forward that agenda, like you're saying, of spending time with my kids. I do hear that. I do hear people say that. A friend of mine, he lives in Los Angeles. He works in Los Angeles. His wife works in Los Angeles. And I was talking to him the other day, and his kids are getting ready to go to school. And I said, why don't you homeschool? And he says, we don't have the ability to do that. Yeah. And I'm just torn. I don't know how exactly to respond to that. Yeah. I don't know if that's a true statement that they don't have the ability, or if they just don't want to make the sacrifice. I don't even want to say sacrifices, because I never sacrifice for my kids. My life isn't compartmentalized like that. Yeah. Yeah. I gotcha. I'm never like, have you ever made something to eat and you're so hungry and you're being so patient and you're not licking the knife and you got this tuna sandwich and you sit down and you stretch out and you turn on the TV and you're going to watch some UFC and your kid runs over and goes, can I have that? And you're like, uh-huh. Yeah. And
Yeah,
it's not
all the time.
you're not happy about it, but it's not a sacrifice because your heart is just filled. And your son takes your sandwich and runs off to the backyard and eats it. And you're like, okay, well, I'll just have a beer instead.
All the time. I heard somebody say, you know, homeschooling is you just make food all day for your kids, right? You just you're just at home and you just making food for them all day. Like that's all it is.
Non-stop. These
guys, because they're just eating. Well, because they're just moving, they're running.
Yeah.
I was telling my wife, I said, man, babe, like when I was in high school, I was 175 pounds, like 5'10", right? Like I'm a strapping young lad. I'm playing, you know, soccer and baseball and football. I'm playing all year long. And this is what I eat. I eat an egg sandwich in the morning for breakfast. I go to school. I have a bagel with cream cheese and a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. And then I don't eat again until like 6:30 at night.
We didn't even drink water.
No, I'm like,
now all my kids got their own water bottle.
Yeah,
I don't ever remember drinking water.
No, I never drank. How could you drink water? There weren't like, you didn't have water bottles.
Drinking fountains didn't work at our school. Yeah,
no, it was terrible. And I think to my wife, I'm like, man, these like our kids have it so good. Like that was a lot. Like some kids wouldn't even eat. You know, it's just I'm like that's so bad for like developing, right? Our brain, our body. We know that with you know, with CrossFit and all we've learned with nutrition, like that's terrible for us.
Yeah.
You know, I think about that all the time. I'm like, man, how did I survive on that? Like, would I have been a better athlete? Would I have been a better student? You know, would I have been able to like grasp concepts better, learn better if I was
if you would have had better nutrition?
If I was fueling myself. Yeah. And my mom, we cook food at home. So I go home and have a great home cooked meal, but it's like that big long gap of not eating. And I was active, you know, it was like, we're moving. And even when you're in school, you're not like in between passing periods, lunch, you're just like messing around and you're just active, you know? And I think about how much food my boys eat and I'm like, man, that would have been super cool.
I'm looking at one of the comments here from Corey. Corey says, I've always talked to my children like I talk to anyone else. I get the comment of you can talk to them from their teachers. Baby talk or treating them less than normal is crazy. The one exception I have to that is, and I was talking to my guest last night about this. I feel like most of the, I see that most of the parents that I see out in the wild, they over talk to their parents. They over talk to their kids. You don't really need to talk to your kids that much. You really need to just, I think, leave them alone. And I'll give you an example. My kid I'll be on my computer and my kid will walk by and be like, hey, can you buy me a Batman Lego? And I just don't say anything to them. Like he's just they don't deserve that response. Can I be it's Christmas. Can I be a ballerina for Halloween? You don't get, you're just twitching. You don't get my attention for that. And then they just move on to the next thing and they're just twitching. And I see this thing where parents aren't giving part of our practice is to be mindful of ourselves, to hear them, to acknowledge them, to create space for them, but not to dote on them.
Yeah.
The example I also like to give is your kid is struggling with something. Your job isn't to rescue them. Your job is to make sure the space is safe for them to struggle. Your kid falls down on the street, you run over and pick him up and carry him to the sidewalk. Your kid falls down on the sidewalk, you don't do shit. You make sure someone's not riding by on a bike. Two totally different scenarios. So sometimes they don't need, they need way less talking to than I think most parents.
I agree.
And there's this belief that you should be encouraging your kids. You should not always be encouraging your kids. You should be encouraging your kids just on the things you want them to do. So if your kid says, hey, I want to, if one of my sons were to say to me, hey, I want to buy a pink dress, I don't say anything to him. I don't say, oh, I love the fact that you're exploring colors and that you're exploring different types of outfits. I don't say that to him. I don't say no either. I don't give it any energy.
Yeah.
Zero. I just give it zero and he switches to the next thing. And it's
just something floating through his head. He's just
right. I just reward them for the things that I want them to do. Right. And by reward, I don't even have to say good job. A kid only needs me to say, I saw you. Like my kid was pumping in the skate ramp the other day, and I'm like, beautiful pumps.
Yeah.
Or I love to see you out here working hard. Right. I heard that one the other day in a book. Don't tell your kids they're good. Tell them you like to see them work hard, because then the reward, they'll want to impress you by working hard. Don't tell them great job or bad job. Just be like, wow, you know how to work.
Yeah. Yeah. You're teaching them that's what you need to be doing. It's not about being good, right? It's like, oh, you're really smart. It's like, no. I love how you're figuring out these math problems, or I love how you're using you're putting out the effort. That's what we want our kids to learn is important, right? Yeah, I love that, dude.
Like, so they get their backpacks for school, and that's when you reward. Like our backpacks hang on the like in the hall in the entryway, and they wake up in the morning, they grab their backpack and they sit at the kitchen counter, and they do Kumon. Do you know what that is?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, my boys did that for a bit. Yeah,
they do that every morning. They're Kumon, and the reward is, hey, good job grabbing your backpack. Good job starting off. Do you have a time every day, like a 10 or 15-minute window where this is the time? At like any schedule like that for anything?
No, ours is pretty loose. Yeah, ours is pretty loose.
Always, just everywhere.
Yeah.
How about, but except for, let's say do they play organized baseball?
Yeah, so they have like their practices and like I said, we go once a week. Right now we're not doing anything, but they go once a week to this co-op group, and they learn. But like besides those scheduled like appointments or practices or whatever, we just kind of fit it in. So if my boys get up kind of when they wake up, unless we have to go somewhere, like they'll sleep till whenever they wake up. I'll let them sleep until 8 or 9 or 10, sometimes 11. It just depends on what we've done. If they're exhausted, they just get to sleep, because I don't set an alarm for them unless we're going somewhere, right? Obviously we have to be somewhere, but I want their body to heal and recover and grow. I don't want to cut that short. Right. So sometimes we start at 9 o'clock. Sometimes we start at 8. Sometimes it's 11:30. And it does also depend on what we have going that day, right? Like if we have a lot going on, like I'll get them up, I'll get them started a little bit earlier. Hey, we got to get this stuff in. Let's get working.
Do you ever say to them, I like to do this a lot. It's 7:30 at night, and maybe they're having their 13th dinner, and I say to them, hey, just so you know, tomorrow morning it's gonna be hot tomorrow, and so I want to leave early and go to the skate park like at 9, so we can leave at 11, and I just give them a heads up.
Yeah, all the time. My older son,
let them know, hey, these are some of my thoughts for tomorrow. This is what we're doing tomorrow.
Yeah, my older son loves that. Like he wants to know what's coming up. Like he wants to be ready. My younger son's just like, whatever, just like let's go. He'll just get ready. Like he just wears the same clothes all the time, and he's always ready. He wakes up, I'm like, hey, we gotta go, get ready. 5 minutes later, he's like, all right. I'm like, did you brush your teeth? Yep. All right, cool, let's go. And my older son likes to know.
Do they like hanging with you, Jeremy?
Oh yeah, for sure. We have a great time. Yeah, we really do.
Do either of your kids have phones yet?
My 13-year-old does. When he turned 13, he got a phone. Yeah.
Was that hard? I've noticed that all the coolest kids I've known, the later you give them the phone, like my kids just started playing tennis with this kid. He's 15. He's like the best tennis player in the area in Santa Cruz County.
Okay.
He didn't get a phone until he turned 15.
Yeah.
And and then this other girl I was talking to the other day, she's like the new High Rocks champion, that thing Hunter McIntyre does.
Oh,
and,
yeah. Okay.
She didn't get a phone until like she was 17, and she's homeschooled, right?
Yeah.
And I'm just like, man, these people are so fucking cool, these kids. And they're less sophisticated. Like my kids are so less sophisticated than their peer group. Like when they go places, the other kids are so sophisticated. My kids are like cavemen.
Yeah, absolutely.
But like, I'm kind of like, fuck it. I think people like them more.
Yeah. My boys are, so we got my 13-year-old a phone. So he's on baseball teams, soccer teams, and he wants to communicate with his buddies, right? Yeah. And I'm like, oh, okay. So it's very, very, very limited. He doesn't get to just do whatever he wants with his phone. It's like, what do you don't need your phone. Like it stays downstairs when he goes to bed. like he gets to have it to communicate with me, or like his mom's gone a lot, right? Like she works as a firefighter, and so she's gone. And so it's really cool. He gets to text her, hey mom, or ask her questions, or he'll ask me stuff. I'm like, I don't know, text your mom. See what she thinks about this, you know? And so he gets to have these conversations with her. So like we're trying to allow him to have the phone for the positives, but not the negatives, right? He doesn't get to just sit and, you know, social gatherings like we went to Chili's last night with his baseball team after a game. And all the parents are sitting at a table, all the kids are sitting at a table, and half the kids are just head down on the phone. And the other half are just kind of looking around. And I told him, I said, dude, I don't want you to be like that. I want you to put your phone away and talk, make some jokes, have some fun. You can do that. You can do that when you're at home if you want it, right? Like you don't need, like you're in front of people, interact with them. And so that's like a big part of like giving them the phone was you have to be responsible to act properly, right? If you want to have your phone. Like these are the things that we need to be doing, right?
What about when I would come home from school in the 5th grade and I would go to the dictionary, and so we had the Encyclopedia Britannica.
Oh yeah.
And I'd pull down the dictionary and start looking at words like fuck and bitch and ass, dick. And I would be like, bitch is in there, fuck wasn't in there.
Yeah, yeah.
Now I'm in the 8th grade and I have a phone, and I could ask that phone some crazy shit.
Yeah, yeah.
And the thing is not for any moral or ethical or any reasons like that. Do I care? I just know that once that stuff goes into your brain, it changes your brain forever, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't want my 8th grade boy, and maybe I'm just fucking naive as fuck, but I don't want my boys to see a video of blowjobs until they're like old.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like over 18.
Absolutely.
Because I think it will change their entire interaction. Because I didn't. We didn't have that shit. I didn't have the internet.
Yeah, yeah.
I didn't see anything like that. I mean, it was like Playboy magazines, right? There was no like sex, and it was like, and I was lucky if I had one page, right? You know what I mean? And it's a girl in a bikini and one boob's out. I tore it out of like my best friend's dad's Playboy. It was like mine. It was my porn. I just did you worry about that?
Yeah, you know, that's
maybe worry's not the right word, but what's your stance?
Not worried,
on
but
that?
it's so I mean, we're trying. That's what I was saying. We try to limit his use of the phone, what he is able to do on it. We set the parental controls and all that stuff. I mean, obviously, we can try as much as we can, but we try to set them up for success, not for failure, right? So we're trying to set parameters on like these are some things. Like without saying like exactly what to do, it's like, these are the things I want you to use. This is why you're having a phone, right? This is what your phone's for. Your phone's for talking to your friends.
Right.
That's it. Your phone's not for anything else. You call them.
Surfing the web.
Yeah, you don't need to do that. I said, if you want to watch YouTube, cool, put it on the TV.
Right.
Right? Because they have their YouTubers that they love. They love to watch, you know, all these certain guys, right? And I'm like, that's fine. I'll sit there and watch it with you. And there's certain stuff will come up. We'll be watching, and the dude starts cussing, and I'm like, who is this guy? I don't know, Dad. Why are we watching him? I don't know. Let me find a different guy. I'm like, you guys don't need to watch that stuff,
right?
You know. And it's like, but we're there together, and we talk about it. And sometimes the dude will say something that I don't like, and it's like, okay, that's fine. And I want to see their reactions. I want to know how they handle that stuff. And they're not drawn to that. And it's not like me sitting there like shaking my finger and like, shame on you for doing that. It's more just like, we're just doing life together, and this happens, and I can see they didn't like that. Right. I'm like, let's not watch this guy. Let's go watch Mr. Beast, or let's go watch whoever it is. Let's go watch Dude Perfect again.
Right.
You know, and so like I want them to know, like, this is what the purpose of your phone is for, right? You're not You don't need to take it in the bathroom. You don't need to have it in your room. You don't need to, that's just not what we do.
Yeah, I like those. It makes me happy to hear that. That's what I'm thinking too. Like, hey, you don't need it in your room. You don't need it in your bathroom. You don't need alone time with your phone.
No, yeah, there's no reason. You have video games? Cool. Go play on the Xbox, right?
Right. And so everyone in the house can see what you're doing.
Everyone, yeah, exactly. Yeah. There's no hiding. My boys never go to the room. They just don't. Like, they're just in the house. They're in the loft. They're downstairs. They're usually wherever we are. They're like right with us.
My boys, Avi has his own room and the twins share a room, and Avi never goes to his room.
Yeah.
If they go to a room, they have a ton of books in their room, so they like to go to but they have always all slept in the same bed their whole life. Like he's never slept in his bed once.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
the boys have two. They have two rooms. Well, so when
your kids are older. How old are your kids again? Sorry,
13 and 10.
Yeah, I'm not even close. I'm like, I'm not even halfway to where you're at.
Well, when we were at the gym for 10 years or whatever, I lived across the street, so I walked to the gym. So I get up, grab the coffee, walk across the street, open up the gym, train the classes, come home between classes. Hey kids, what's up? Do my thing, right? They always, like, we had a very, very tiny house, super tiny, and they've always just been together, right? Like, they slept, like, they had two different beds, but they were literally like almost touching, right? Like they've always been close. We move in, so my wife got hired as a firefighter. We were to save some money, bought this beautiful home, and it has too many bedrooms, right? They don't, and my wife goes, oh, we're gonna buy them their own furniture for their room, and they're gonna do this, and I'm like, they're not gonna use it. I'm like, it's just not gonna happen. No, we'll put them in their own rooms. They want to have their own rooms. Okay, fine. That didn't last. They've been in the same bedroom with each other for, like, they did that for maybe a couple months, and then they just started sleeping. And they're like, hey, can I put my bed in Carson's room? I'm like, Carson, you cool with that? Yeah. And they arranged it. They just did it themselves. They took it apart. They took the bed frame apart. They moved it over. They rearranged a couple things, and they just did it. I was like, yeah, do whatever you want. And so now so we have this empty room that's my younger son's bedroom, and then we have this other room that they're both in. And they just
start a parenting podcast.
Yeah, maybe.
I saw this video, and one of my sons all three of them play piano, and one of them is really starting to get into the guitar. And I saw this, and I have to be like, oh my God, is this like just like one of the greatest moments of your life?
Oh man,
shit like this happens?
Yeah, dude. So I introduced my brothers. We, like, growing up, we always played. My dad played guitar, and so my dad would play guitar. He played some John Denver for us, and we'd sing with them, and we'd just hang out. Like, that was like good family time. And so we've carried that. My dad passed away years ago, and so we've kind of carried that along. My brother Jonathan, very good on the guitar, and so my boys grew up seeing their uncles and their dad. Kind of, I'm not great on the guitar, but I'll play around. But they're seeing this, and they like, my son had the desire. He's like, I want to learn those songs. So we give him a ukulele at 9 years old, and he just starts rocking out. I'm like, like, he picked up on it so fast. And then he goes, Dad, I want to play guitar. I'm like, okay. So I gave him he was like, I'm bored with the ukulele. I want to play guitar. So I give him a guitar. 10 years old. He's just rocking out on the guitar. It's super cool seeing him like doing this with my boys. Like, I love it.
And people, so here what you're seeing is a boy is being rewarded. He's not being forced to play. He's being rewarded because dad is spending time with him. So there's nothing kids want to do more than make their parents proud.
Yeah.
And he feels how proud Jeremy is here. And so it's like this crazy synergy. All you have to do is just you want your kid to play a musical instrument? Just give him attention every time he does.
Absolutely.
If my kid starts playing the piano, I don't care what I'm doing. I could be on the phone with the President of the United States. I'll be like, gotta go. And I go in there and I give him attention for it. even if I don't
Absolutely.
want
100%,
to.
man.
Yeah,
100%.
actually 99% of the time I don't want to. I'm always glad I end up doing it, but I go in there and I just sit there. I lay down on the floor and listen to him play. He looks at me and I just give him like, hey, you got my attention.
Yeah, and that's the best moment of his day right there. It really is.
It's so awesome. When I saw that, I was like, man, that's great.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I mean, it's, everything that we do, right? Like people highlight, oh, kids won't do what you say, but they'll do what you do, right? And it's always like a negative thing, right? It's like they're going to do the bad things that you do. And it's like, but that's, unless you're doing good things for them, right? Like, unless you're teaching them good things, unless you're like, when he was in my wife's womb, right? When he was in her stomach, like I was playing guitar for him and singing. And when he came out, I was playing guitar and singing. And it doesn't matter how good I was at it. I was playing guitar and singing. And like, now he's like, that's cool. I want to do that.
Yeah.
Right. And so we just recently at 13 years old, he finally had his first guitar lessons. And the teacher's like, wow, you're like really good. Like, what have you done? Like, who'd you have lessons from? He goes, no, I never had lessons. I just listen to a song and then I just play it. Like, we don't give him the chords. Like, now he's like learning chords. Yeah. But he just would play the song. And I'm like, and even for me, I'm like, how do you remember all those chords? Like, that's a long song. He goes, I don't know.
Hey, and you couldn't teach someone that.
No, you can't. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you can't.
This when my sister I always thought my sister was crazy, and now I'm following directly in her footsteps. It's kind of funny. Yeah. When my sister told me she was going to homeschool her 3 sons, my 3 nephews, beautiful, fucking crazy, cool boys. I was like, what is she doing? She doesn't have a teaching degree. She doesn't have the space. She doesn't have the money. Where's she going to get the curriculum from? My parents don't like it. And I see this slide you put up, 5 things you don't need to homeschool. And that was my thing always too. I'm not smart enough to teach my kids. Yeah. Yeah. Did you have that? And how did you get past that? How did you realize that's not what's happening here?
Well, my wife homeschooled our kids first, right? So she started off, but we never, I don't know, like we always kind of had this idea of like teachers go to school to learn to teach because there's a lot of kids. Right. Right. When they're in school, they're not learning necessarily. I shouldn't say this because I don't know exactly what they're learning, but it's more they're learning to control and do lessons plans for 30 kids. When you have one, doesn't everybody help their kid with their schoolwork when they get home? Like when they have homework, like that's what people do, right? Like if I had a problem at home, who would I go to? I couldn't call my teacher. Hey, mom, I need help with this math. I don't understand it. Right. Mom would come over and we'd work through it, right? Or dad, if dad was home, we'd work through it. And so I kind of always had that idea, like I didn't like I knew I could teach my kids for at least, and I just thought it was going to be just when they're really young, right? I was like, oh, well, I can do it when they're really young, but then when they get older, I won't be able to do it. And that's not true either. But what a lot of people don't realize is that,
like you would have never been able to teach him the guitar and you didn't need to. You gave him the environment to where he learned it himself. Yeah, exactly.
But a lot of people think that you as a parent, as a homeschool parent, you have to teach your kids everything. And that's not true. Right. Your kids do Kumon. They're learning a lot right there. Right. My kids do, they're doing different subjects, like doing math on, they go on, it's called Nicole the Math Lady. And she does like a little lesson for them. They follow along and then they do some work problems or they do some problems. So like, I'm not having to teach them everything. Right. I don't have to know everything. I just have to know how to get them access to someone that can teach them that stuff, right? Some stuff they'll naturally just kind of learn, like a guitar, right? But there's some things that someone needs to show them how to do it, right? Needs to say, hey, let's go through this, let's work on this. But you have access to, like, there's Khan Academy. There's so many great. My brother Jonathan uses that with his boys. He's like, dude,
is he homeschooling also?
Oh yeah. Actually, my whole family is homeschooling. So I started it. Yeah. Okay. I started it and Noam was doing it. And then my brother Jonathan started doing it. And my older brother Jason started doing it with his kid. And now my sister, whose son just started my younger sister who started in kindergarten or first grade, she's doing it as well. So that's super. So like they're all some of them were in public school, but they all are homeschooled kids. So it's kind of a cool, like when we get together, that's all like, we just talk about that kind of stuff. You know, it's like pretty cool to see like my family doing that.
I haven't seen any bad homeschooled kids. I mean, I'm sure they exist. I just haven't seen any.
I haven't really seen much, right? It's not like, it's like a very, very rare thing. Versus I feel like there's more like delinquent, bad kind of kids in public school. Because I feel like kids just get ignored, right? Like parents aren't giving them the attention at home. They come to school for some attention and they don't get attention, right? And so how do they get attention? When they act up, right?
Right.
And it's like, but, and like my 10-year-old will do some stuff sometimes. And I'm like, I realize, he needs some attention. He needs some positive, like maybe he wants to go do something with me. Maybe he, you know, like I can recognize those cues versus like when you're in school, and like my older son doesn't do that. So it's not every kid, right? But you can't do, like a teacher can't stop me like, oh, I'm going to give Johnny a bunch of attention because he needs some attention. Like maybe he had a bad night, maybe there's some stuff going on, maybe he's struggling with something, right? You don't get to do that. You know,
when you take your son to these like when this baseball team he's on, are most of the kids in school?
Yeah, most of them are. There are some. We've been on some teams where there's a good amount of homeschool kids, but most of them are in public school. Yeah.
And do you see that those kids are more sophisticated than your kids? Like I see the kids, you know, like I heard just about a year ago they were looking at an iPad. A bunch of kids were gathered around an iPad. And one of the kids said, who was younger than my kid, said, "Oh, are there any naked pictures of your parents on there?" Or like my kid has a video game that has 500 games on it, and it's like Defender. Yeah. It's like Defender.
Oh, yeah.
And
like a little tiny one.
Yeah, dude, it's like this thing you get on Amazon from China for like $40. And it's like, and they can't, but these other kids show up like who are younger than them, like with these twitches or switches or things.
Yeah.
And my kids are seeing that, or the other kids know how to navigate YouTube. And my kids are like, holy shit, YouTube. And I just see this, they talk gooder. They talk more gooder than my kids. Not more polite, not more intelligently, but almost like used car salesmen. Like they got a shtick already. And I'm like, holy shit, these kids are advanced. And my kids aren't they just don't.
Well, I think because your kids are what, 7 and 5, right? Yeah.
And I can't believe there's like 4-year-olds who go to school. They're in preschool every day, and they just fucking, they're like little adults already.
Well, that's the whole thing, is that it's like this race to get kids to grow up fast, right? They have to, they need to do what adults are doing. It's like, well, yes and no, right? Like my 13-year-old, I would say he's more sophisticated, right, than my 10-year-old by far, because he's just been around things more, right? We allow him more freedoms to do stuff, right? But but when they were younger, they were exactly like your boys, right? Yeah. And so I think just as they're getting older, like there was no rush for me to teach my kids how to do all that stuff when they're 4 or 5,
right?
But now that they get older, like, you know, I always say this, like learning how to read, right? Like you can push a kid to do that when they're young and they can learn how to read, but there's no benefit to them learning how to read at like 5 versus like 10.
I didn't learn how to read till I was 7, and now now all the kids are reading at 5. It's pretty. Even my kids through Kumon learned to read at 5. I'm like, what the fuck is going on here?
But like whether you learn at that age or a little bit older, there's no, like when you become an adult, like where do you see the benefit of that, right? They need to learn that young, because then the teachers don't have to help them as much, right?
Right.
Then they can read their problems on their own. Like my 10-year-old has struggled with reading. We actually have him doing a reading tutor. He's not into it.
Right.
Like he just doesn't want to sit down and do it. And so I'm just like, okay. Like I'm not going to make it a bad thing and force him.
Right.
And then he's going to hate reading.
You cannot do that. That will fuck everything up. Yes.
Absolutely. And my parents they didn't know any better. They tried to force me to read. And I didn't read books until I was probably out of college. Like I would, and now I love learning. Like I'm so passionate about listening to audiobooks, reading different books. Just, I want to learn. Like, but I didn't have the desire like when I was younger. And so, and I was like, I hate reading. Like that was in my head. I hate reading. And I'm great at spelling. I have great comprehension. I didn't read growing up. Very, very little. And I'm like, well, and I have cousins and you know, we have cousins of the boys that read when they're super young and they're like crazy. They love reading. And I'm like, that's wonderful. My boys like to play sports.
Right.
My younger son likes to take stuff apart. He will just take stuff apart. He'll build stuff for us. He just wants to get greasy and dirty and just get in the mix. And he doesn't want to read. He just doesn't care about it. So we're working with them, like slowly getting him ready for stuff. But like it's been something that like now he's more interested. And so we're doing it and he's doing great. But he wasn't, you know, and so we've been homeschooling through a charter school. And so they give us funding and we kind of have to jump through some hoops for them. Yeah. And it was like they were like very concerned that my son had a problem. And I'm like, no. My boys understand how you get good at stuff. They know that when you work on it, you get good at it. I'm like, why are you so good at baseball and your cousin isn't? He's like, well, because I play baseball all the time. I'm like, why is he good at reading and you're not? Well, he reads all the time. Right. I'm like, okay. Right. So I said, as soon as you want to be good at reading, you just need to start reading more.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
And now he's like, I want to read more. Right. He knows that, you know, the basic words and stuff like that, but he's like, I want to read more. I want to read that book. I'm like, all right, well, let's start working on it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so it's not a negative thing for him. Right. So the charter school is like, oh, negative, you have to.
It sucks.
Yeah.
My kids though haven't had to deal with any of that yet, but I grew up with that. I remember being like the smartest kid in the fucking school until the 3rd grade. And then some things came up like cursive or certain kinds of math. And the second I fell behind, I hated myself.
Yeah. Yeah.
Where that doesn't happen in homeschooling. It doesn't have to. Like if you're doing Kumon and you struggle, everything just slows down.
Just slows down.
Yeah. And the rest of the class isn't getting ahead of you. Everything just goes.
You're doing you're in your own lane.
When you're doing great, you go fast. And when you're doing when you need more time, you get more time. And it's just like
exactly.
Yeah. I look forward to every day of spending all this time with my kids. Is that how it is for you too? You're just like, I can't wait to. Yeah.
My wife, you know, she's working a lot. She's definitely like, man, I miss being at home with the boys a lot. Like that's definitely something that like we enjoy. Like when she's home, we just hang out. When she's home, like our schedule goes out the door. Like unless we have she's like, what do we have today? When she's going to come, I'm coming home tomorrow. What do we have tomorrow? And I tell her, we just have these 2 things. Cool. And then we just enjoy life. We just do whatever we want.
I'm pretty OCD about the schedule. And now that summer's here and we live, you know, right near the beach, I've told myself, hey, you have to let everything go.
Yeah. Yeah.
If it's 80 degrees, you have to like not take them to tennis. You have to not take them to jiu-jitsu. They have to be able to just wake up and we have to just be able to go to the beach all day. And it's so good.
Yeah, absolutely.
And they flourish. I'm never like, oh, I wish we wouldn't have spent the whole day at the beach. It's always like, man, that was fucking brilliant.
That was the best. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Self-education is the only possible education. And I guess we were just talking about this, right? Like if it has to be at their pace. It's when your son's ready. Self-education is the only possible education. The rest is mere veneer laid on the surface of a child's nature. Yeah.
You know what?
Who is like Charlotte? Go ahead.
So Charlotte Mason's like really big in the homeschool community. She's done a ton of just great work. Like she has some curriculum that you can follow, like homeschool style, like a certain style. But she's just someone that I've heard of over the years. And you know what? I think that like that's like if you look at people with learning disabilities, right? Like dyslexia, right? Let's say dyslexia. Like there's so many like extremely successful, wealthy, powerful, whatever it is, people that have that, right? That have struggled through that. Right. And so like, that tells me that
to a point that
like,
you have to start asking yourself, hey, is it really a setback? Or is it just like that person's different and they're getting
different?
Fucked?
Exactly.
Yes.
And so when they're in school, they're getting screwed.
Right.
Right. They're getting, the schools, the system is making them think that there's something wrong with them. Not that there's something different. There's something wrong with them. And that's a big problem.
Like they have a third leg and all pants are only made with 2 legs. And now this kid's out, even though he's got a third leg.
Yep. Absolutely.
Yeah. Do one of your kids have dyslexia?
No, but I know a lot of people that have it, and it's something
I can't even understand dyslexia. You know what I mean? Like when people explain it to me, I'm like,
it's pretty complex. It's not just like people like they switch your letters. It's like there's
my
a
S
lot.
Is fucked up. It looks like a 5.
Yeah, you're like I can't. It's like it's very. I don't fully. I was just reading something on it the other day, just from a homeschool person that I follow. Who like helps people with that. But a friend of mine recently, their son was diagnosed with dyslexia. And so I was kind of talking with her about it, and I was explaining, because I forget what book I read about it, but they talked about all these successful people that have these learning disabilities. And so I was kind of just sharing that with her. I was like, hey, like that's okay. Like for some reason we made that into like this weird thing, but it just means they're different. Right. They're just going to learn different. Right. And so with homeschool,
which means they're going to create different.
Yes.
And very likely more unique and quite in tons of examples better.
Yep. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So we have to embrace that stuff, and we have to like let kids know that there's nothing wrong with them. They're just learning differently, right? That's it.
This one rocked me. Don't question your ability to teach your child. Question putting your child into the same system that left you feeling incapable of teaching your child.
Right.
I'm just like, oh, dude.
Yeah, that's a problem, right? Like
I'm an idiot for not thinking of this myself. This is idiocy to think that. Yeah.
Yeah, right. I know. It's like there's a problem. Like you went through all these years of school and you're an idiot. Like, right? That's in your mind. You're like, I'm an idiot. I can't teach my kid the basics.
Yeah.
It's like, no, you can. You can. And like, why would you want to put your kids in that? It's just.
And school's dumber now than it was then.
Yeah.
Everything. They're just the lowest common denominator. They're just bringing everything down to the lowest common denominator.
Yeah.
Yeah,
dude.
This one is I just love so many of these slides. The parent-child connection is the most powerful mental health intervention known to mankind.
Yeah.
Can you give me an example of that? Why you say that?
Well, I think with, like this, I think this is huge for, like as a parent, having that relationship with my kid where they can come to me and they can talk to me, right? And they can confide in me, right? Like that's going to help them deal with so many issues that they have as they're growing up, right? Because a lot of times, like I talk to my wife or I talk to different people, and they say, like I felt all alone when I was growing up. Like when I had my period, or if I had my first, erection, or like you don't know, you're like, oh, I'm alone. You're like hiding from that, right? But if you have your parent, right? If you have that connection with your parent where they're like talking to you about stuff, where you go, hey, Dad, I feel weird. Or, hey, Mom, what is going on? Or they've said, hey, this stuff's going to start happening. Your body's going to change, right? Then you have like an outlet to go talk to someone that's going to help you. You don't feel like you're alone. Like I think a lot of mental health issues, like we feel alone, right? And I don't know what, I don't know like the science behind, the chemistry in our brain, but I really feel like having that connection with your parent, like, is going to allow you to just navigate those things a lot more successfully,
I was driving the van once. It's funny. There's tons of stuff my boys do with their penis that like bring back memories. Like the one I always remember is like when they were 3 years old and they were all in the bathtub, they were pushing their penis inside out. So like they push it inside of it and then watch it pop out again. And I was like, here I am as a fucking 48-year-old man. I'm like, oh shit, I remember doing that 45 years ago.
Right.
Like, holy,
right.
I would, or they would wash me, shower, and they would be like, soap your face, soap your face. They just thought that was so manly to wash your face. And I remember I remember thinking that about my dad. My dad would wash his hair with his eyes open. I'd be like, this motherfucker's hard. You know what I mean? Like, holy
he didn't even close
shit.
his eyes.
Doesn't even close his eyes. And, but the erection thing is so funny because, it happened with all three of my boys, all in a car seat. One of them would at first with Avi, he'd scream when he's 3. He's like, my penis hurts, my penis hurts. So I pull the car over, I open the car seat, I undo his pants, and he's got a hard on. And it's probably like, and it hurts him.
Yeah.
And I don't even know if it hurts him, but it's his first one, and the only word he has to describe it is, it hurts. Or it's the first one he's had where he can talk and has it simultaneously. And I'm just dying laughing. And then it happened to the second one and the third one. But you're right. They need a parent who's like, hey, it's all good. It's all good. Like, stand up, shake it off, do a couple laps around the car. I go, that's just a lot of blood in there. You just got a ton of blood in there. Like, why does it go in there? I'm like, it'll all make sense as you get older. It all makes sense.
Exactly. Yeah.
I'm like, I'm not sure how to explain it to you, but it's just blood in there. They're like, okay, I just run it off. I'm like, just run it off. Do a couple laps around the car, run it off. Oh, it's so funny.
Yeah.
And I want to be there for them. I want to be there for them for all that.
Yeah. Yeah. Because you like it's.
Go ahead.
It's just, it's like you're the guidebook, right? Yeah. Like they're going to figure out a lot on their own, but there's some things that they need some guidance on, like they need to know, like, hey, that's okay. You don't have to feel weird about it. Like everyone else, all guys, that happens to all guys. Right. Oh, okay. Okay. That's cool. But we don't talk about it, but it happens to all guys. That's your private stuff, right? You talk about that in the household with mom and dad. That doesn't go anywhere else, and they learn that stuff.
I'll hear these parents say stuff like, there is no book on how raising a child. There's no right way and there's no wrong way to do it. And I don't like that, even if it's true, because I feel like there's a sense of like abandonment of trying to be better. But like one of the things that's really important when you're raising a kid is to understand the true mechanisms of how a brain works. So for example, if you yell at your child, what you're teaching your child is not that throwing rocks at the side of the house is bad. You're teaching them that yelling is a way to handle situations. Now, I'm not saying that's right or wrong, but I would say the vast majority of times that we yell at our kids, it's not right. Yeah. Like, hey, you just showed your kid that you should, like, that they leave the bathtub on and it flows over the side. And now you're losing your shit, and you're showing your kid when shit hits the fan, the proper thing to do is lose your shit. That's what you're teaching your kid. Yeah. Exactly. And you have to understand that, like, you have to understand what you're teaching your child. Mm-hmm. And I feel like that's part of this whole mental health thing. I don't think people understand how much shit that they're teaching their kids that they don't want to be teaching them. Oh, I'm so open and letting my kids explore that. No, actually, you led them down that path. Yeah.
Well, it's definitely a struggle, right? Like as you're around your kids a lot, it is. Like I get upset with my boys.
Yeah, right? Me too.
You know what I mean? Like it happens, but then we have to talk about it later. Hey, guys, that's not the right way to do it. Like I was frustrated because of this. I was trying to get this done and this distracted me. Like, and it's like, we really like,
I have no business talking to your mom like that.
The mirror, right? Yeah.
I'll tell them that. I tell them once a month, I'll be like, hey, listen, I shouldn't have, like, the fact that, I don't know what happened. My wife left the car door open and the battery died. And I come in the house. I'm like, dude, the battery's dead again. And even that, I catch myself. I'm like, dude, first of all, don't ever talk to your mom like that. Don't talk. No one wants to be talked to like that. It's a jackass thing to do.
Yeah, for sure. And you gotta have those conversations, but
yeah.
I forgot what I was going to say.
Sorry, because I interrupted you. You
No,
were
it's
basically
okay.
saying about having the hard conversations with your kid, or getting mad at your children. You get mad at them.
You get mad at them, but you have that conversation. You go, hey, that wasn't right, right? That wasn't okay. And you're like, the mirror is turned back on you. Like, you really have to take responsibility for your actions. You can't go, oh, well, sending them to school, like, that's their problem. Like, the teachers are going to teach them everything. And it's like, well, this is my problem. I'm teaching them everything. Everything that they do stems from things that I've taught them, right? It's not obviously, right? It's not obviously my fault. It's that they're this way because of the things that they've learned from me. And so you really, like, as a parent, I'm like, I need to be like learning how to be a better human, right? How to be a better dad, a better spouse, a better friend. And we talk about those things. It's like, guys, you're in school, like, you're learning, this is school. But I said, have you seen mom and dad? Like, we're always reading books. We're always listening to audiobooks. We're watching podcasts. We're watching YouTube stuff. Like, we're constantly learning. I told him, I said, hey guys, you're going to probably do more learning. Not probably. You're going to do more learning once you finish school than you ever did in school. And that stuff is actually going to stick, right? You're going to find stuff you love, and you're just going to dive into it. Like when I found CrossFit, my brother and I found CrossFit, it's like, we dove in and we were like, I can't get enough of this. I remember learning kipping pull-ups in my garage with my laptop in my house, watching Nicole Carroll. Okay, that's what I do. Running out to my garage, jumping on the pull-up bar, doing some wobbly things, going back in, and I learned that day how to do kipping pull-ups. But I was so passionate about learning that, right?
Yeah.
I was like, I'm good. And so when everybody came over to the garage later, I was like, guess what I learned? Boom. I'm doing kipping pull-ups, and everyone was so jealous, right? But it's like, you have that, like, you're so passionate about learning. Like, I was like, you guys are going to have that. You're going to have those things where you're like, I'm in love with that, and I want to learn everything I can about it. And you're just going to dive in.
And you're also going to learn that I'm going to pull up to a parking spot, and even though I was there first, I see someone's about to pull in. I roll down my window. I'm like, all yours, buddy. And I go to the other one. You're going to learn that when I'm in line at the grocery store and I got a basket full of groceries and there's someone behind me with one item, I let them go in front. My kids are going to see that. They're going to see that when I pull up to the counter at British Airways and I tell the lady, oh my God, your hair is beautiful. And then she upgrades us to business class just because I was able to say something fucking nice to some 65-year-old lady who's like, holy shit, that's the nicest thing anyone said to me all day. I'm like, well, you do have fucking remarkable hair.
Yeah.
And it's like, they're going to see all that shit. They're going to see that please and thank you mean more than your, and as parents, there's nothing more rewarding when you go to the toy store and buy your kid a toy and the person opens the package for your kid and hands you your toy and your kid looks up at the person at the store and goes, thank you. You're like, oh, like that's better than your kid graduating from high school. You're like, oh my God, look the way he treats his fellow man.
Yep. Absolutely.
That's
that's a big thing for us, is like teaching our boys to be leaders, to be strong men. And a strong man doesn't mean like you go kick ass, right? You go beat people up, you bully people. A strong man is like, you take responsibility for what you're responsible for, right? Like
you take control of the situations you're in. Yeah, responsible. Yeah. And
you navigate that, right? Like I was talking to my son about that kid slapped him in the face. I'm like, these are the options. I said, this is here are probably the better options, right? You probably don't want to fight a good friend of yours because you're going to see him because he's going to be at the baseball games because he's, his older brother's on your older brother's team. So you don't want to fight him. Like that's not the right time for that. But you don't want him to bully you. Right. And so you have to say something. I said, you need to let him know that wasn't okay.
Even though it's uncomfortable, you have to face that uncomfortable. You have to say something to him.
And exactly what I told him. I said, even if it's uncomfortable, it feels weird, you need to say it. The more you stick up for yourself, the easier it is. But like you're saying, those are the things that we want our kids to learn. Like that's the important stuff. Like I don't care if my kids, I don't care how good they are in math. Like I wasn't able
to stand up for myself, Jeremy, until I was in my late 30s.
Yeah, most people never learn to stand up for themselves. you know?
And it's so cool. People respect you for it. Like you don't even have to be a dick about it.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's
set
so
that boundary.
Nice. The whole relationship evolves when you stand up for yourself.
Yeah.
If you're just cool with it. It's kind of honesty 101.
Yeah. Yeah, it is.
This was my favorite thing. I woke my wife up and read this to her last night. This is the one that's really, if you have kids or you're about to have kids, this is the one that you really, I cannot emphasize enough. And I'm so fortunate that I live on the coast of California, one of the greatest spots on planet Earth. I'm fortunate that I also have a little bit of property here just up off the coast that's fenced in. But in this time of extraordinary pressure, educational and social, in this time of extraordinary pressure, educational and social, perhaps a mother's first duty to her child is to secure for them a quiet, growing time, a full 6 years of passive, receptive life, the waking part of it spent for the most part out in the fresh air.
Yeah.
Can you, what is that? That's how easy it is, people. It's just your time. Those first 6 years, people are like, what should I do with my kid in the first few years? I go, I used to walk Avi to death.
Yeah.
They're just fucking dogs. Just walk.
Outside.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would spend the day he learned how to walk, I don't know, like at 13 months or whatever. Even before then, when he would crawl, I would take him outside and there would be a coffee shop a half mile from my house. We'd spend 2 hours walking there. He would fall 600 times. He would stop and stare at flowers. I didn't give a shit.
Yep.
We're on a 3-hour half-mile walk.
Yeah.
That's all I did with my kids for years.
Well, I get a lot of people with younger kids who aren't in school yet, reaching out to me, asking me about, hey, how do I start homeschool? What do I do? What curriculum should I get? Where do I go? And I'm like, they don't need any of that crap.
Nope.
Just do life, get outside, go places, have them experience things, right? Let them fall down, let them climb up trees, let them, like where we used to live when we had the gym, there was a big tree. And so my boys, guess what they did? They climbed to the absolute top of the tree as much as they can. Our landlord comes over and goes, hey, I don't want your kids climbing in the tree. That's why, she says something about homeschool. That's why, all this stuff always happens when I'm not there. It always happens to my wife. I'm like, babe, it's probably good I wasn't there because she would have probably kicked us out. But hey, that's why your kids need to get in school so they can get the wiggles out. But it's like they're climbing trees. They're like, that's what you do. That's what kids do, especially boys, girls too. So I think but I think boys are more like that's the adventure. They want to get to the top. Like they want to see how high they can go. Not because he's not trying to beat his brother, right? He's trying to get to the top because he wants to see what he can do. He's pushing his limits, right? And we need to provide those opportunities where they can explore and try stuff and not have mom and dad running around them like, oh no, like don't do that, don't do this, navigating their every step.
That's what grandparents are for. Stop acting like you're fucking the grandparents.
Right.
It's really hard being around your parents in the beginning because they want to overprotect your kids. Let them do it. That's their job, but you don't do it.
Yeah.
You know what my kids used to love doing? Driveways, especially Avi. So anytime we saw a driveway, he wanted to run down it and run up it, run down. He loved inclines.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah.
Look, I'll just sit on the cement next to him and just for 15 minutes. Like your job is just to be patient. Just chill. Yeah. Set of 3 stairs, go to a hotel and they just want to go up and down the stairs for an hour.
Yeah.
Let them get
hang on the railing. Just hang on the railing.
Yes.
Cool.
Take a deep breath and just walk. Yeah. There's nowhere to go. There's nothing to do.
Yeah, absolutely.
You don't have to get to the park if your kid just likes jumping up and down off the curb.
Yeah. I feel like there's and obviously you see it more with moms, stay-at-home moms with their little kids. And I feel like there's this, like, it's as if we've created this idea that that's a negative thing, right? It's like, that's like, I need to hurry and get that done so we can go do important things.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
I got to hurry up. Let's go. Are you done playing? Let's go. We got to go do X, Y, Z, whatever the things they have to do. Right. And it's like, no, those are the most important things for your kid to do. Right? Take your time there. And it's this, there's this sense of, and I feel it too, being home with them all the time. Like there's a sense of like, I need to get stuff done.
Yeah.
Right. I got to go get stuff done because I have so much to do. And sure, maybe you do, but the most important stuff is that. And you need to make that the priority and spend the time doing that until they're done. And then you move on.
I had that exactly what you're saying. And about a year ago, Avi had an incident. I don't know exactly what happened, but I think, I guess it doesn't matter, but he was in jiu-jitsu. And I think what happened is a kid kicked him in the stomach, and he said that he felt his urine go back up into him, kicked him in the bladder. And then for 6 weeks, he refused to like participate in anything. And in that 6 weeks, I realized, hey, I don't care how good my kid's at anything. Like I just need a healthy kid I just need a healthy kid. Yeah. I don't care if he gets his gray belt. I don't care if he gets better at tennis. I just need a kid who's happy and wants to participate. And it kind of, it connects to what you're just saying. It just rewired me. I slowed down with everything. It's okay if I miss a class here. It's okay if, like I used to get mad at the jiu-jitsu classes if I would go there and it would just be all fucking kids who couldn't give my kid a challenge, and then they played games the last half of the class. Yeah. Now I don't care because you know what I mean? It rebooted like, oh fuck, I could have an injured kid. Yeah. Like chill the fuck out. It's not about getting to the next thing. It's not about always achieving a goal. It's about just being there and participating. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It's hard. It's hard to, because that's what we're conditioned to do, is just keep going. Yeah. You know, and no one ever, it's hard to get yourself to slow down and be, not just slow down, but slow down and be okay with it. Right. That's a challenge. It really is. They're young. There's so much time. Oh yeah. Absolutely. And they're always growing, even when you think they're not growing. Yeah. Well, I appreciate you coming on. Absolutely, man. Thanks for having me. I can't believe I'm 500 shows in, and this is the first time I've talked about homeschooling. If any, Jeremy is on Instagram. He's very active. Is it okay if people hit you up in the DMs if they want to talk to you about homeschooling? Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's what I'm there for. So I'm there to help. So hit me up. It's been fun being on here and talking with you. And you know, I've always liked following what you're doing. I've always appreciated what you did, and what you've done, you know, all these years when we met way back in the day, until now. And so I appreciate that. And I appreciate your consistency with your message and your approach to life. So it's very refreshing, right? When people are real. Yeah. Thank you. They don't bullshit, and they don't bend, and they don't like unbuyable, right? Unfiltered. Like, yep. Like you need to be true to yourself. Right. And I appreciate that with you. But and thanks for having me on here. It's been great chatting with you. I'd love to come back on if you ever want me to be on here again. I'd love to have you back on. This needs to be, because this is, you know, there's other people I have on the show and it's fun talking to them, you know, but this is going to be something I'm going to be doing for the next 10, 15 years. And so I'd love to have you back on. Yeah. Well, you know, there's so much that you can dig into with this topic, you know, and I feel like more and more it's becoming just so important. Like there's so many people that are like, they want to do it. And they think it's right. And they feel like we do, but they're afraid to take that step. They don't. And so like, that's why I don't know, just one day I was like, you know what, I should just start supporting homeschool families. Like I should start helping people, because people would just reach out to me. And so like, it's something that more people need to do, not because of any other reason, but they want to, like, they feel that urge, like they feel that urge and desire to go, I want to have my kids home. Like some people don't like their kids. Some people can't wait for their kids to go back to school. I'm not judging them. Maybe a little bit, but that's them. But I struggle not judging them, by the way. I have a whole section in here of my notes. You said, I don't judge you for putting your kids in school. And I'm like thinking, well, I fucking do. And not like I still can't be your friend, you know, like I judge my own mom, you know what I mean? It's not that I still don't love you, but like, but I do judge you.
Well, I understand that they're just maybe not ready yet, right?
Yeah. It is weird though. Like the whole script gets flipped. Like you're saying, you think it's going to be hard homeschooling them, but now that they're homeschooled, it seems like it would be really hard to send them away.
Yeah, absolutely.
It seems the script gets flipped.
Yeah.
All right, brother.
I'm
actually the only reason why I'm rushing to get off is I'm taking the boys to their skateboarding lesson.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Sounds fun.
Loved having you on the show.
Yeah,
take care, and I'll be in touch.
Okay.
And I'll be following you closely on Instagram for inspiration.
All right. We'll see you. Ciao. Have a great day, man.
Thank you. You too. Bye. Guys, thank you so much. Tomorrow morning, it's not on the schedule yet, at 7 a.m., I will have Justin Nunley on and Darian Weeks from the UFC. Justin Nunley, the great comedian, award-winning comedian, TikTok superstar, Instagram superstar. And we will be talking about UFC 275, 76, whichever the one, Israel Volkanovski, Max Holloway, Jared Cannonier, etc. will be fighting on. I will see you guys then, and I'll get that scheduled on StreamYard. Thank you, everyone. Bruce, thanks for texting me this morning, unfucking me. I apologize, guys, for being an hour late today. Love you guys. I really do. This is a blast. Okay. Get your No Plan B shirt now at